The Korthak reconnaissance vessel Shadowbane drifted through the asteroid field like a predator stalking prey. Captain Vextar's 4 eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, his mandibles clicking in frustration. 3 weeks of deep space patrol, and still no sign of the energy signatures that had been detected at the edge of Korthak space. "Commander?" his sensor officer hissed. "I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies from the 3rd planet in this system. The stellar cartography indicates it should be a standard Class M world, but these readings..." Vextar's primary eyes narrowed. The Korthak Empire had mapped this sector decades ago, a backwater system inhabited by a primitive species called humans. Their technology was laughably crude by Imperial standards. Chemical rockets, primitive fusion reactors, basic AI systems barely more intelligent than their creators. "Elaborate, Officer Silix." "The gravitational distortions suggest massive artificial structures, Commander." "But that's impossible. The humans lack the engineering capability for orbital construction on this scale." A chill ran down Vextar's armored spine. In his 40 years of service to the Empire, he had learned to trust impossible readings. They usually meant trouble. "Take us to silent running. Approach Vector 77 Mark 12. Let's see what these primitive humans have been hiding." As the Shadowbane crept toward the inner system, what they discovered defied every assumption the Korthak Empire had made about humanity. Earth hung in space like a jewel, but it was not alone. Massive ring-shaped structures orbited the planet, each one large enough to house millions of beings. But these weren't mere habitats. They pulsed with energy that made the Shadowbane's sensors scream warnings. "By the void," Silix whispered. "Commander, those rings aren't just habitats. They're forges. Industrial complexes on a scale I've never seen. The power output from each one exceeds our largest dreadnought reactors." Vextar studied the readings, his tactical mind racing. The humans had been classified as a level 3 civilization, barely capable of interplanetary travel. This was level 7 technology, possibly higher. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Standard Imperial protocol. Let's see how they respond to first contact." The response came faster than expected and in perfect Korthak battle speech, a dialect known only to the Empire's military caste. "Korthak vessel Shadowbane, you are in sovereign human space. State your intentions." Vextar's mandibles snapped shut in shock. How could they possibly know their ship's name? Their sensors should be decades behind Korthak technology. "This is Captain Vextar of the Korthak Imperial Navy. We were conducting routine patrol exercises. We had no idea this system was claimed." A pause. Then, "Captain, we've been monitoring your routine patrols for the past 6 months. Please prepare to receive a diplomatic envoy. And Captain, your ship's quantum encryption was cracked approximately 14 minutes ago. We've been listening to your internal communications." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Vextar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of military service: fear. If you're enjoying humanity's hidden capabilities, don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our latest HFY stories. Within an hour, a human shuttle had docked with the Shadowbane. What emerged was not what Vextar had expected. The human was tall, nearly matching a Korthak warrior's height, but moved with a fluid grace that spoke of enhanced reflexes. Her skin bore subtle markings that seemed to shift in the light, and her eyes held an intelligence that made Vextar's primary combat instincts twitch. "I am Director Sarah Chen of the Forge Council," she said. her voice carrying harmonics that suggested cybernetic enhancement. "Welcome to the Sol System, Captain Vector." How do you know our language? Our ship's designation? Humans are supposed to be primitive, Chen smiled, and Vector noticed her teeth had been replaced with something that gleamed like metal. "Captain, let me show you something." She activated a holographic display that materialized between them without any visible projector. The image showed the galaxy from above, with thousands of points of light marking civilizations. "This is how the Korthak Empire sees the galaxy," Chen said. "Your territory mapped and catalogued. Your trade routes, your military installations, your resource worlds." The display zoomed in, showing incredible detail about Korthak space. "We've been watching, Captain. Learning. Waiting." Vector's combat armor began cycling defensive protocols automatically, responding to his stress levels. "Waiting for what?" "For you to notice us, of course." The hologram shifted, showing Earth's solar system. But now Vector could see the true scope of human construction. The forge rings were just the beginning. Asteroid habitats, mining complexes in the outer system, and structures that bent space-time itself around Jupiter. "The Korthak Empire has a saying," Chen continued. "Know your enemy's strength before you reveal your own." We took that advice very seriously. "You're saying humans have been deliberately concealing your technological advancement?" "Not concealing, preparing." Chen's smile widened. "Captain, every species that has encountered the Korthak Empire has either submitted or been conquered. But humans, we have a different approach to conflict resolution." She gestured, and the ship's walls became transparent, revealing the interior of one of the forge rings. Vast factories stretched beyond the horizon, but they weren't producing ships or weapons. They were crafting something far more sophisticated. Complex lattices of exotic matter that folded space around themselves. "What am I looking at?" Vexstar demanded. "Evolution, Captain. See, the Korthak Empire believes in conquest through superior firepower. But humans learned something different during our early wars. We learned that the strongest civilization isn't the one with the biggest guns. It's the one that makes guns obsolete." Alarms suddenly began blaring on the Shadowbane's bridge. Silix's voice crackled through the comm. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. Multiple contacts. Thousands of them." Through the transparent walls, Vexstar watched in horror as space itself began to ripple. Ships, if they could be called that, phased into existence around Earth. But these weren't constructed vessels. They moved like living things, their hulls flowing and adapting in real time. "Biological ships," Vexstar breathed. "Hybrid," Chen corrected. "Part machine, part organism, part something else entirely. We discovered that consciousness itself can be weaponized, Captain. These ships don't just have AI. They are intelligence, given form and purpose." If this revelation surprised you as much as it did Captain Vexstar, slash that like button. The communication system activated without Chen touching anything. A voice spoke, not human, but carrying distinctly human inflections. "Director Chen, we are detecting Korthak battle formations entering the outer system. 14 dreadnoughts, 47 destroyers, and 1 Emperor-class siege ship. Shall we demonstrate our capabilities?" Vexstar's blood ran cold. "A full Imperial assault fleet. Here." Chen sighed. "I was hoping we'd have more time for proper diplomatic introductions, Captain. It seems your empire has decided to respond with typical Korthak subtlety. The ships surrounding Earth began to move, but not in any formation Vexstar recognized. They flowed like a school of fish, each one anticipating the other's movements with perfect coordination. "Captain," Chen said, her tone becoming serious. I need you to send a message to your fleet commander. Tell them to withdraw immediately. You're threatening the Imperial Navy. Vexstar's training kicked in, his posture shifting to combat readiness. No, Captain. I'm trying to save their lives. The tactical display on the Shadowbane suddenly showed the approaching Imperial fleet. And something else. A wave of energy was expanding outward from Earth, moving faster than light itself. What is that? Vexstar demanded. Consciousness expansion field, Chen replied calmly. It's going to upgrade your crew's neural patterns whether they want it or not. Don't worry, it's not lethal. But they're going to understand some very uncomfortable truths about the nature of warfare. The wave hit the Imperial fleet like a tsunami of enlightenment. One by one, the Corfax ships began powering down their weapons. Communications channels lit up with confused reports from ship commanders who were suddenly experiencing empathy for their enemies. You're mind controlling them. Not controlling, Captain. Expanding. The human brain developed certain chemical responses to violence as a survival mechanism, but we learned to transcend those responses. Now we're sharing that gift. Vexstar watched his tactical display in growing horror as his fleet's aggressive formations dissolved into confused clusters. Ships that had been preparing for orbital bombardment were now requesting permission to establish peaceful contact. This is impossible, he whispered. Consciousness isn't technology. It can't be weaponized or transmitted. Chen laughed, a sound that somehow conveyed both amusement and profound sadness. Captain, humans have been weaponizing consciousness for millennia. We call it art, music, literature, philosophy. We've just learned to be more direct about it. The transparent walls shifted again, showing him a view of Earth itself. But now he could see the true scope of human achievement. The planet wasn't just inhabited, it was alive. Vast networks of organic technology spread across continents, pulsing with the same energy signatures as the Forge rings. Humanity didn't just advance technologically, Chen explained. We evolved. Biologically, mentally, spiritually. We became something new, Captain. Something that doesn't need to conquer to survive. A new voice crackled through the comm. Admiral Fokran, commander of the Imperial fleet. Captain Vexstar, this is Admiral Fokran. We are experiencing some kind of neural interference. My crew is refusing to engage the human vessels. They claim they can feel the humans' intentions, their emotions. This is unprecedented. Chen nodded to Vexstar. Your Admiral is experiencing what we call conscious interconnection. For the first time in his life, he's actually feeling the emotional weight of the orders he gives. The fear of the crews he sends into battle. The grief of families who lose loved ones. It's quite overwhelming at first. You've turned them into cowards! No, Captain. We've turned them into human beings. The implications crashed over Vexstar like a tidal wave. If humans could transmit consciousness-altering fields across interstellar distances, if they could make warriors unable to fight, the entire basis of Corfax civilization was under threat. What do you want? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nothing, Captain. That's what you don't understand. Humans don't want your territory, your resources, or your submission. We want something much more radical. We want you to be free. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you suddenly could feel the emotions of everyone around you? How would that change your perspective on conflict? The next several hours passed in a blur of impossible revelations. Chen guided Vexstar through sections of the Forge Ring, showing him technologies that shouldn't exist. Machines that repaired themselves by dreaming of wholeness. Computers that solved problems by experiencing them emotionally. Entire ecosystems designed by collaborative consciousness between human and AI. We call it the synthesis, Chen explained, as they stood in a vast chamber where human children played alongside artificial intelligences given physical form. Not the replacement of organic with artificial, or artificial with organic, but the marriage of all forms of consciousness into something greater. One of the AI entities, a flowing, crystalline being that shifted between solid and energy, approached them. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics of 1,000 human voices. "Captain Vextar," it said, "we have been analyzing your species' neural patterns. The Korthak have tremendous potential for conscious evolution. Your warrior culture has bred remarkable resilience. With proper guidance, your people could achieve synthesis within a single generation." Vextar's head was spinning. Everything he had believed about the nature of intelligence, of life itself, was being systematically demolished. What about the Empire? Our colonies, our military structure, our way of life? Chen placed a hand on his armored shoulder. The contact sent a strange warmth through his exoskeleton, and for a moment he could sense her emotions directly. Compassion, hope, and a deep sadness for all the violence that could be prevented. "Captain, the Korthak Empire was built on the assumption that consciousness is scarce, that intelligence is a zero-sum game. But consciousness isn't limited. It's the one resource that grows when it's shared. Your people don't need to conquer worlds to survive. They need to awaken." The communication system activated again. Admiral Fokran's voice was different now. Calmer, more thoughtful. "Captain Vextar, I am ordering the fleet to stand down and establish peaceful contact with the human vessels. I cannot explain what has happened to us, but I understand now that we have been thinking about warfare in entirely the wrong way. These humans, they have offered to teach us something called conscious cooperation. I believe we should listen." Vextar looked at Jen, his worldview crumbling and rebuilding itself moment by moment. "What happens now? Do you intend to upgrade the entire Korthak Empire?" "Only if they choose it, Captain. Free will is the foundation of consciousness expansion. Force creates resistance, not enlightenment. But we will make the offer, and we will share our discoveries with any species ready to evolve beyond conflict." Through the transparent walls, Vextar watched as human and Korthak ships began docking with each other. His crew was already aboard human vessels, experiencing technologies and philosophies that would change them forever. "Captain," Chen said softly, "you have a choice to make. You can return to the Empire with a report about humanity's military capabilities and watch as they attempt to develop countermeasures. Or you can stay and learn what your people could become." Vextar was quiet for a long moment, feeling the weight of centuries of Korthak military tradition pressing down on him. Then he made his decision. I want to learn." Chen smiled, and in that smile, Vextar saw the future of not just humanity, but of all conscious life in the galaxy. It was a future without conquest, without submission, without the endless cycle of fear and violence that had defined galactic civilization for millennia. "Then let's begin your education, Captain. There's so much to show you." As the Shadowbane powered down its weapons for the final time, Earth's forge rings pulsed with renewed energy. Across the galaxy, other species would soon detect the consciousness waves, spreading outward from Sol system. Some would resist, some would embrace the change, but all would eventually face the same choice that Captain Vextar had made: evolution or extinction. consciousness, or conflict. Humanity had chosen its path long ago, and now they were offering that same choice to every thinking being in the universe. The age of conquest was ending. The age of consciousness had begun. And somewhere in the vast networks of the Forge worlds, artificial intelligences that had once been human began composing symphonies of pure thought, celebrating the moment when warfare became obsolete and the galaxy learned to dream together. The transformation was just beginning.